So, real quick, give us a snapshot of Delic, and then we'll jump right into the acquisition news and what else you have in the pipeline. So,
sure. So, Delic is a ecosystem for psychedelic wellness. So, what is it? It's a platform that collects data that helps welcome people to the world of psychedelics as wellness. So, we have a platform that gets a few 100,000 people a month coming to it, learning, discovering. We collect the data on what they're looking for and why, and then we use it to help bring products to market. So as of right now, we've acquired a chain of ketamine clinics. They have an incredible model that offers high quality care and access to people who might not have access to this. So that means both in underserved regions and utilizing insurance, so people can get psychedelic therapy without breaking their bank account. And so I think that.
So Matt, so the key thing here with this ketamine clinics, the psychedelic, basically, so one of the issues is right now the treatments, it's pretty expensive, right? To get it's a couple of grand if you don't have insurance.
Exactly, and there's a bunch of folks who are out there pushing out this kind of 1% only model where they're going to big cities and they're charging big money and they're not taking insurance. And so what we're looking at, we bought this chain. They have an incredible team that's opened 27 clinics across the country in the last couple of years. They're really skilled at this, and they've managed to build a practice that does almost 2/3 of their business is insurance reimbursed. And so they're making it super accessible, because that means you come in and you don't pay $1 to get your psychedelic therapy. So we're working with them to open somewhere between 15 and 18 clinics in the next 24 months, being really aggressive, but the business is really incredible. It's about a $250,000 CapEx to open and maintain, and the top line of these businesses goes to about $1 million a year, with a margin of around 30%, like an actual profit margin around 30%.
So basically, you open up a clinic, you get your money back, and then some within a year.
Yep.
And of course, you could probably, I don't think you're gonna have to do too much. You could probably get, you can get loans. You don't need to do dilution to open these up, because a lot of it is kind of like bank financing, whatever. There's probably other, instead of, so you could probably, it'll cost you almost nothing to open up a clinic, and you're basically making 300 grand per clinic per year.
Exactly. So it's a really substantial business, and we're offering people this access to psychedelic therapy in a way that's really doesn't break the bank and allows people. We think COVID has brought this incredible mental health crisis, right? You have tens of millions of people with anxiety, PTSD, and depression that didn't have it before, and you look at current psychiatric medicine, and your efficacy rate is around 5%. So 5% of people get better every year. And when you look at psychedelic therapy, you're looking at 60–70% efficacy.
That's interesting. That's a big number. Okay, so 5%.
It's a 10x. It's a 10-bagger, as your guys like.
10-bagger. Okay, yeah. Well, actually, hold on a second. We're looking for the where's our slide? The 100 baggers. The 100 baggers. We're looking for the 100 bagger stocks. But for medical thing, it's a game changer. So basically, if somebody goes to like a doctor, they have, let's say, depression, right? So they get prescribed, what do you call it?
Prozac or some other antidepressant.
And that's about how effective is the Prozac or these other things?
Well, so you have all of these different components. So you have both the actual efficacy of the substance itself. You have the side effects. Yeah, you have the lack of sexual motivation. You have the lack of awareness, happiness, joy. So what we like to say is that, we're creating a platform for people to actually get well rather than be hooked and addicted to a pharmaceutical substance. And that's
when they go for the ketamine treatment, is it a one-shot deal? How does it work?
So it works. It essentially works, just in layman's term, it's like a reset for your brain. So if your computer is malfunctioning, let's say we're on this and I went to the blue screen of death, what would I do? I'd reset my computer, set it back up again, and come back on. Now, that's the way that psychedelics work for the brain. They give you this, in terms of ketamine, it actually gives you this full dissociative effect, which allows your brain to stop spinning, circling in this place of depression, anxiety, PTSD, where you can't get out of. People talk about being in a dark hole. People talk about being stuck. These things are all part of the same default mode network, which keeps you stuck in this place of trauma and agony that you can't physically get out of, right? And these, it's ketamine in this instance, but other psychedelics work as well. They actually pull you out, give you perspective. And so to answer your question, there are 6 treatments in a short succession that give your brain multiple resets, right? So you come in, you get this course of treatment, and then you get boosters every couple of months that help you stop from falling back into your old patterns. So it's, the other part of this is very interesting, is a clinic only needs about 100 patients a month to be super successful. So you're not talking about tens of thousands or millions of people. So like the business model itself is really, really sustainable. And if you're talking about, you know, you look at the Wall Street Journal and it says 30 million people have fallen into some form of depression, anxiety, or PTSD through COVID, that's a pretty huge addressable market, right? And you need 100 per clinic, and we're talking about having, you know, 18, 20 in the next 24 months. That's, you do the math, 2,000 people monthly. It's not a huge number of people. You know what I mean?
That's like
exactly,
you know, a couple of square blocks in a big city.
Exactly. And that's why we think it's a very, very realistic to do. And we believe we'll be able to do a ton more from there as we scale and have all of these wonderful people to help us build it even further.
Okay, so basically the ketamine, in other words, essentially it's like essentially like if somebody is depressed or they have some other problem, they're kind of in a forest. They have no perspective. They're kind of stuck in this like downward spiral, and the brain is just focused on this one thing. And the ketamine thing basically like just like takes them out.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You
they see about that. You know, life is pretty good.
Yeah, they get this it deplanes them from their space. You see the forest for the trees, as your metaphor goes. You get out and you get perspective, right? And so it's a dissociative drug, so it pulls you out from your default mode network, which is your higher functioning egocentric stuff, and you get to see, hey, I live in America. My life's pretty amazing, right? I have first world problems. Exactly, first world problems are the exact thing, but if you're in them, they're crushing. And people, you know, the suicide rates tripled this year. It's not a joke. It's real, and it's
no. I mean, you have people who have everything going for them that have
exactly. And you look at this business. The reason that insurance is starting to cover it is because they see the difference in cost between this kind of treatment and someone harming themselves, hurting themselves, destroying their lives, and the insurance still has to cover them, right? So it's just it makes economic sense as well. It's not just a feel-good thing. It is a really good economic move to cover people to change their mind for the better.
No, so yeah, at the end of the day, it's the economics drives the whole thing. So it's it's a win-win, for everybody. So that's just part of your model. So you're going to have these clinics rolled out in the next.
Yes, we'll have these clinics rolled out, and then the acquisition that we closed on yesterday.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What did you buy?
So we bought a company called CBDV. They are a lab up in Canada that has a psilocybin license. So they have a license to do work with psilocybin. So, you're talking about an actual Health Canada license to do clinical work on psilocybin, which we think is incredibly interesting. The business is not only profitable, it's growing quick. It has, a legacy business with a bunch of major companies in the cannabis and hemp space. So they work with Charlotte's Web, a large tobacco company that I think we cannot name, a bunch of other MSOs, related parties, working on as a outsourced chief research officer. So what they do is they'll work with a company to do their deep scientific research outside of the company's confines, because they have licensure and a bunch of incredible scientists doing the work, right? So for us, it's all about team. Delic is all about team. So the team we brought in through this, one of the people sold his company to Aurora for $115 million, Anandia Labs. The other one, Dr. Marcus Rogan, the founder of CBDV, is a genius, really incredible scientist, and has some amazing ideas. And for us, we see this as a cash flowing, growing business that we're going to continue to scale and grow, but we also see this as a place to develop novel IP. So we have these incredible scientists, we have all of this equipment, and we have the license. And they have some really amazing ideas on how to find novel IP around the delivery and kind of how to give people great experiences utilizing psilocybin. Now, why is that so interesting? That's so interesting because in less than a year, Oregon is going to come online as a legal state, and IP is borderless. So rather than looking at creating IP, working through a 6-year process and trying to get it out through the FDA, we think there's a really strong model to create this beautiful IP around, let's say it's transdermal patches or vaporization. There's a bunch of different things that are
different delivery. So basically, this lab is sort of, these guys are going to create different ways of delivering the psychedelic experience through different.
And then we will port it to, we're looking at operations in Oregon, and the idea is to port the IP, because IP is borderless, down to a fully legal state, create these consumer packaged goods out of psilocybin products, then allow people to both buy them and then report on how they work. And if you look at a pharma company, for them to run a phase 3 clinical trial, if they have 10,000 people's data, that's $500 million worth of work for a pharma company. But for us to sell 10,000 units of a consumer packaged good and then get reporting data from those people is 6 months or a year, not even, right? So
so how does it work? They through like an app that would say, hey,
yeah, exactly, through our platform, back to the fact that we own the largest platform for psychedelic discovery in the world. That's how we bring back the data. So we sell the product, we bring back the data through our platform, and now we have a package that a small or medium-sized biotech company can buy from us. And we say, here is a potential new drug that you can take that has been almost completely de-risked because you've actually looked through its consumer feedback product data, and you now have as much data as you'd have after spending $150 to $400 million on FDA trials.
Okay,
so
okay.
So start from third base.
Okay, so Matt, so I think I finally understand, your vision here for this ecosystem. So you have this platform, you have this website that has the psychedelic like reviews. It's sort of like what you were doing at High Times. You have the High Times of psychedelics.
There you go.
What's the website again? It's
called Reality Sandwich.
We should make a band, realitysandwich.com.
Yep.
Hang on a second. I'll do it.
And it's one of the top ranked on Google for discovery of psychedelics. So if you go on and Google things about DMT or mushrooms or how to grow your own, or some of these terms and interests in psychedelics, you will find Reality Sandwich. So we're drawing a large contingent of folks who are coming in to understand more about psychedelic wellness. So the idea is this will feed our clinic business, and this will feed the data back from our lab and IP development. So we think there's a really interesting pinwheel that we can build, and that's what we're here to do, is take these very interesting cash flowing, revenue positive businesses, grow and scale them, make people money now in psychedelics rather than in 5 or 7 years, and then have some really awesome, 100-bagger opportunities. You look at the guys at GW just got bought for $7.5 billion, right? So if we can sell someone
psychedelics to me seems more, it's got more of a little more, it has a little more horsepower than cannabis for
I think so too. I think that cannabis is one substance and it is amazing, and I spent many years helping to legalize it at High Times and building that ecosystem and infrastructure and helping pave this trail. And what I think is really important is that those years of blazing the trail, of hacking out the jungle with machetes to get through, now makes it so that psychedelics have a much clearer road to travel. So rather than 18 years like it took me at High Times, it's been 2 years at Delic, and we're already at a place where one state is legal and California and Colorado are both in process for putting ballot initiatives on to allow psilocybin and maybe other plant medicines to be fully legal and sellable. So you're going to have state legal frameworks for deploying psychedelics. Now that creates an incredibly interesting business model. And we think with the platform, with the ecosystem, we have a leg up on everyone else doing it. And we have the ability to take our lab, create novel IP, spin it into these, take a borderless product, which is IP, which means you just take intellectual property, you put it into a manufacturing in the state where it's legal, you push it out, and then you have people record their information on our platform. And we now have incredibly valuable data about IP we own that we can market back to biotech discovery companies.
How much is that worth? Like, okay, so in other words, let's say, okay, so basically you have this, you develop this IP. For example, let's use an example. Your lab, this the complex CBD, which is complex biotech discovery, the company you're buying. Okay, so they develop a technology for getting the psychedelic experience through. I don't know. I used the example of a patch, but let's say something else. Give me something a little more exciting, like.
Let's say another product that we've talked about is a
vape.
Yeah, a vape.
Okay, so in other words, I do a vape and I get an experience of, I don't know, like ayahuasca or something, or I don't know, ayahuasca. Maybe ayahuasca is like
or maybe it's a shorter window. Maybe it's a 45-minute trip closer to maybe it's a quick onset, quick offset. Maybe there's, we're looking at some interesting stuff around quicker bioavailability and shorter offset.
People want, especially the millennials, they want instant gratification. They don't, they want in, out,
on your Snapchats and your TikToks and your whatever fun
67
hours of tripping. You want 35 perfect minutes, and you're back at it, and you've altered your default mode network enough that you're out of your depression, anxiety, all of these things that psychedelics have been shown, proven to absolutely help. And this is, to me, the science is why this path is going so quickly, why states are coming online legally. It's because there is a tremendous amount of science, and because the substances have been available to test and try, unlike cannabis, which only has one place in the entire country, the University of Mississippi, and they grow like the worst weed I've ever seen in my entire life. So that's the only thing you can test.
Matt, let me ask you this. What do you call it? The idea of doing a fast trip, like, do you think that these guys could develop a technology to do like a 15-minute, 30-minute trip?
Yeah, I mean, this is part of why we completed this purchase. We think the team,
a fast onset, in out, half hour, lunch break, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing a lunch break trip to anyone. I would still recommend anyone who does this is intentional and deals with it in a way that is beneficial to their mental health. But I do think that there is the potential, utilizing our team and our lab, to really build some incredible novel IP. And where people are doing this in labs right now and trying to get it to market in 7 years with the FDA, we can have something at market next year, and we can collect a ton of data, and then we can sell that with the data, or partner with that with the data with a biotech company that wants to get it out there. And they now have a clear path, and it's been completely de-risked because you now have enough data to know where the trials will wind up.
Okay, so we got a question, which is funny. I just wanted to get this. Okay, so basically this Pinwheel thing you mentioned. Okay, so you have the lab that develops this, the delivery system. Let's call it a vape. I'm just using that as a vape, the psychedelic experience. Now you license that. So no, they developed the IP, the IP, right? Mm-hmm. They license that to whatever stores in Oregon, whatever it is.
Yep.
They sell the vape, they sell the cookies, however
it is. Exactly.
Then the people who buy it in the store in Oregon, they get some sort of incentive to go to your site, which is realitysandwich.com, and to put in their experience. So
what we do is we say, hey, here is a discount code. I've done this in the cannabis world for years. You give QR codes and give backs, and you get their data, because people are always interested in how they can both interact with the brand and find out more. So we have one of the deepest websites in the world, 12,000 pieces of content around psychedelics. We create specialized content to go with the products. The people who are interested click or QR their way back to the site, and then we get consumer feedback on the experience, what it does for them, and how it lasts going forward. So you now have an incredibly deep layer of data on consumer experiences with psychedelics, and you can take that along with the novel IP and market it back to the biotech companies.
Okay, so this is great stuff. Okay, so where's the comment about the Pinwheel? The Pinwheel. Where is this comment? How did this get? Okay, so the Pinwheel concept. Okay, or the flywheel. Do you mean the flywheel? Is the flywheel they're calling it? The flywheel, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it's a virtuous cycle, right?
It's a virtuous cycle. Yeah, it's amazing.
For us, what we see is that the reason that we're differentiated is we have this key entry point for people to come in to learning about psychedelic wellness. So the site is one of the top destinations for learning about psychedelic wellness. Now we have clinics where people can go to get safe and effective psychedelic wellness in a way that is accessible to all, not stuck only to the 1%. And we have novel IP development that will funnel back to the recreational psychedelic market. And then that data will come back into the Pinwheel and feed more data and information and help us make better decisions and know what people want and use that to resell it or license it or whatever kind of strategic deals we can do with biotech discovery companies.
This is what Amazon does. That's the Amazon business model. They sell a product, they get reviews, they see who's buying, they get the whole AI. So how much can you sell this data for? For example, to a biotech company. Let's say you have a piece of data with let's say 5,000 users. They've done this. What is that worth?
Well, you think about it, and you look at what the biotech companies spend on going through phased clinical trials. I can just say that Ebu sold to Canopy for hundreds of millions of dollars doing this with cannabis, right? So they took consumer data they did scientific research on cannabis, they released products, and they took this consumer data back and they sold themselves to Canopy for $400 million, right?
Wow. So this model has been done already.
It has been done before. I also think you look at biotech companies and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on FDA, going through the regulatory hurdles. So having this data, meaning de-risking that hundreds of millions of dollars, what's that worth to you? If you were going to de-risk $300 million, that's got to be worth $30, $50 million, or or you just come in and you say you spend the money and we'll take 20% of the final thing. Yeah, we don't, you know, we don't need the money today, but we'd love to have a couple billion when you sell it to someone.
Yeah, because the data, I mean, your data, basically, when you get this data, it doesn't really cost you anything. I mean, when you have this, it costs you nothing. So basically, let's say, I'm trying to think. So let's say, you know, a drug development company, a biotech company, they say, hey, we want to get this thing, you know, we'll give you 20% royalty on whatever the deal is, however the deal works.
Whatever the deal is, exactly.
But the deal could be worth, let's say, 25, 50 million plus, whether it's front, whether it's the license, there's a way different ways.
It could be worth way more if they, you know, we take back end on it and we believe in it as strongly, that could be worth, you know, once again, we just saw a $7.5 billion exit for Sativex. So that's, they have two drugs, Epidiolex and Sativex for GW. That's two, and they're both just plant-derived sprays. They're not even that much, you know, I know the folks behind the actual cannabis products, they were real weed that was extracted in Amsterdam in a similar model 15 years ago, right? People who were originators of the cannabis space took it, extracted it, and made it into a substance, and then ran through, you know, a bunch of FDA trials. But I think the opportunity, the real thing here is that we're going to be at market, making revenue, making profit, we believe. And that allows us to be really, really a strong player in this space. And, you know, I think our team is just incredible. You know, on the lab side, as I said, we brought in some real superstars. I got a text from my friend who was the CEO of Charlotte's Web, and he was like, wow, you guys picked up a superstar. Like, that was one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he had worked, you know, Marcus, who runs the lab, had run outside research for Charlotte's Web for the last year and a half, 2 years, and done an incredible job. So I really think the opportunities are endless, but we have a really clear and focused path to what we're going to do. And we see, you know, these couple of things are just really have some hockey stick growth in front of them. And as I said, the numbers are just based on really simple progression, and you don't need that many people. And we have hundreds of thousands of people coming to our site a month, and we need, you know, a couple thousand to be in these clinics every month for it to be incredibly profitable. It's not a hard piece of math for people to do.
No, okay. So this is very interesting. Now, here's a question. We're going to jump. We're going to got a couple of questions coming in, which we want to get into. But first, what? Excuse me. How soon do you think you can have some sort of IP that could, you know, go into, or like, you know, from this acquisition? When do you think you can have some sort of IP for delivery, whatever?
Yeah, I think we have a pathway to launching with the recreational market, or call it the rec medical market, because it will be. Oregon has a, you know, the bill that passed is a medical mushroom bill, but similar to medical marijuana was in California before this. You know, it allows for a state legal mushroom distribution sometime in early 2022. So a little less than a year. And we have a, you know, a pathway to having novel IP that launches with the launch of the Oregon market.
Okay. Okay, so apparently I was mispronouncing. It's Oregon, not Oregon, as I call it. But so they're gonna have, you know, I don't know.
Thanks for the mispronunciation. Like, yes.
So basically, that's gonna be coming up soon. Let's hear. Great question. Does the Canadian psilocybin license generate revenue today? How many other entities possess a similar license?
Yeah, so CBDV is on track to do about $1.2 million in revenue this year, profitable revenue, and there are less than a handful of these licenses in existence. So it is very desirable.
Okay, but I think, listen, this goes beyond just having a license. It goes into, like, hey, you have a team that can develop. You know, it's okay.
Exactly. We're not just a piece of paper. There's something really, there's a really incredible team. As I said, one of the other folks sold his business to Aurora for $115 million. So they really know what they're doing. Okay.
Okay. So we got a question here. CBDV and Haven have a psilocybin light. So what is the tie-in?
So CBDV has been working on the acquisition. Yep, exactly. So Haven is working through our license. So that is how they tie together. Haven has been utilizing the team at CBDV for their outsourced scientific research. As discussed, that is their business.
Okay, so whose license is it now? So it's your license.
It's our license. Yeah, we are purchasing that license. But as I said, the business here is the reason that it's so profitable is that it does outsource. CBDV does outsourced chief scientific research officer business. So it takes on science projects from large companies in the cannabis, hemp, and psilocybin space. And so that's where there's a huge amount of revenue and profit that we can derive from this. And then what the plan is to utilize the team to build our own in-house IP using the same equipment, team, and everything that other people are using. So it is a twofer. We have a business that is profitable that we then get to utilize to build this IP.
It's very interesting. It's really like it's like you call it the Pinwheel. It's really like the Amazon model. They get people in. Selling books, but really they get the whole thing. So once they come in, it's an incredible virtuous cycle that you have. So this data this drug development data might be more valuable than everything else you have.
Look, what we think is that we have this really interesting opportunity to be a cash flow generating company in this psychedelic space where everyone else is making long-term promises, right? Where we can deliver actual results with some really great long-term promises. So that's the twofer that we want to deliver to people, is both a profitable and cash flow generating business that also has some incredible blue ocean in front of us.
Blue ocean, I like that. Yeah, the big score. So essentially, you have this kind of. I use this metaphor before. Is like, you're buying this cattle ranch in Texas, and you get the cattle there, but really, the real asset is the billions of barrels of oil that's underneath the ground, which you might find. You just got to drill, and a couple of drill. I don't know. So you might have one of these massive,
exactly. Oil sites. You might have a couple of giant gushers, and we know that we have an incredible real business that we are growing and is going to be, one of the best in the space. And we're going to be one of the largest ketamine clinic operators in the space and have, I think, the best lab in the space. And